Welcome to the Speak Like a Leader podcast with John Bates. Welcome to the show. With me today, I've got someone from my own backyard. You know, I've gotten much more interested lately in what's going on here in Salt Lake City because the Utah economy is tremendously vibrant. And in the Salt Lake Valley, there is just this plethora of really cool, successful, super interesting companies that are having a global impact, and they're right here in my backyard. So today I'm talking to one of the leaders of one of those companies, and I've talked with him a little bit before, and he is someone who has succeeded multiple times in the startup world and in the finance world. He's someone who seems to me from what I know of him to not be very flappable. He's a pretty mellow dude. And I think you're going to enjoy our conversation. I'm certainly looking forward to asking him some questions and finding out more. My guest today is Jordan Wright, and he's the co-founder and CEO at Atomic Financial. And Atomic Financial is the market leader in payroll connectivity. They're kind of like, if you know Plaid for payroll. And, you know, at the risk of insulting you, Jordan, well, I do not mean to be insulting, but what you're doing is one of my absolute favorite things. And how I would say it, just to be a little bit controversial, is you guys are doing something that's incredibly important and kind of mundane.
Yeah, that's a fair comment.
I'm glad you laughed. But you know, I remember a long time ago, I had just gotten into the internet industry. It was 1994, and I was speaking at a conference, and the guy who spoke before me was the AOL movie phone guy, which probably nobody even remembers. Have you even heard of that, Jordan?
I have heard of it, but that's touching on long distance memory for me. So
yeah, it's a long time ago, but it was a thing where you could call on a phone and get a menu and find out what movies were playing near you and what times they were playing. Yeah. And it was a pretty brilliant idea at the time. People used it like crazy, but he had just spoken, and I said basically what I just said, that that's something that is mundane, and mundane is power. And he was not very happy, the voice of the movie phone voice guy, but I thought it was a great compliment. And because it's something that is just so important and so everywhere. And the other thing I know about you and Atomic Financial is that what you're doing, besides, making just everyday life better and allowing, payroll connectivity, you've also extended banking services to people who are just traditionally, whatever, unbanked, I guess is the term. Mm-hmm. Can you tell us a little bit more about that? And you want to say anything about mundane and what you guys do? I'd just love to hear about all of it.
Oftentimes infrastructure would be considered mundane to a lot of people. It's not the flashy, sexy thing that a lot of companies are into, right?
Yeah.
But when you have to pull together connectivity for hundreds of different payroll systems, there's something kind of monotonous about some of that work. But it's our mission that makes it so powerful, and it's our mission to help the most financially vulnerable people in our society. And when we talk internally, like, hey, we're going to help the wealthy people too, that's fine with us, but it's not a reason to exist. And so, when we look at our reason to exist, so many people, when they go to get a loan and they don't have a 750 credit score, they then are reliant on their payroll information and being able to provide it in a secure way. And if you're just taking a picture of a pay stub, those can be doctored. They're not treated at the same level of like guaranteed data quality, right? Versus us at Atomic, when we come in, we authenticate with the user's account. That data is coming straight from the payroll system. It's very good quality, and it's data that heretofore has been unlocked for that crowd. And so helping them get access to to a loan at a better rate. In some
Yeah.
cases, they can set up their payments to come directly out of their paycheck. That helps us decrease the APR they experience on those loans. Those are key reasons why we exist. We also help move them off of banks charging high fees. In the last 3 years, we've seen a bunch of big banks quit charging exorbitant fees for overdraft. And we feel grateful to, and we feel like we're part of that. When we look at our company results for 2021, we believe we saved consumers about $140 million in overdraft fees. And that's really exciting for us.
Gosh, Jordan, this is why I'm so excited to be talking to you. Like, I can just hear so much in what you just said that I want to dig into. First of all, just, thank you and congratulations for having such a compelling mission, and
thank you.
And for recognizing the power of this to make a difference for those that have the least. I just think that's so great. And I love hearing that. That's awesome. So it's already evident in just the first few sentences that we've heard from you that you have got a mission and that you are, you're clearly a successful leader. How did that happen? Were you just born like this, or did anybody influence you along the way? Like, how would you attribute this?
Yeah. So first off, we did a company survey recently, and one of the questions was, do you have everything you need to be successful in your role? Right. And it was ranked from 1 to 5. And I told everybody in the company I rated myself a 4. So I don't think I know everything. I don't think I have it all set. I don't think I'm a perfect CEO or co-founder or leader. Yeah. But I have tried really hard to be as good as I can be. And I think for me, there are different stages of my life that different people have had that kind of impact. Yeah. I will say from a young age, I have trended toward this. I have a journal entry from when I was 8 years old, wanting to start my first company and what it was going to be. When I was 12, I converted my parents' barn into Hogwarts Castle, invited local kids in and had them pay entry fees to be able to get in. We had broomsticks hanging from rafters and all sorts of things that probably wouldn't be compliant with any sort of regulations about how those sorts of things should be operated. But I would say that was in me from a young age, and especially in those formative years. My mom was probably my greatest source of inspiration. My dad as well, both excellent. But I always remember my mom giving me feedback that I could be whatever I wanted to be, and trying to lean more into me as opposed to change me into something that something more like her or something more like anybody else in society.
That's great. That's really great. Keep going.
Well, I was just going to add, in college, I had the opportunity to take a job, and I worked full-time, went to school full-time in a startup here in Utah called NextPage. And their CEO called Darren Lee. He's been a mentor of mine for a long time. And, as I've had different things I've encountered in my career that were difficult or hard decisions I needed to make, I oftentimes call on him and one of the other board members there at that company that have been transformational for my career, certainly, and have helped me be a much better decision maker, I think, a lot faster than I would have otherwise been without mentors like that in my life.
So now, can you tell us an actual story, and you could leave out the details, so you don't have to kill us, but can you tell us one of those stories? Like, we were at this difficult point and, I called Darren and let's hear it.
I'd be happy to. So Unbill, at one point, my co-founder and I had to bridge the company with our own money to be able to keep it alive through a point that we thought we could get some better results and raise some more money. And I remember during that time calling Darren and asking him some questions about like who would want a washed up founder that had been a failure. I was starting a company for 3 years if this thing goes under. And I remember him saying to me, like, well, I'd be the first in line, but I probably wouldn't be able to pay you as much as you're worth. And just talking to me about all the reasons he would want to hire me back in a heartbeat. And all the skills I'd gained during that time period that people go get MBAs to get those skills and those sorts of things. And I just, more than his comments, his confidence in me was what shone through, and certainly helped me at a time when I wasn't feeling so on top of the world.
That's beautiful. And that's an example of what I call speaking to someone like they're great, no matter what's going on in the moment. Like I would assert that Darren clearly saw your greatness at a time when you were not so clear on it.
Yeah.
And, there's a woman named Melinda Richter, who's now the global head of Johnson & Johnson Innovations J Labs, and still, a client and a friend more than 10 years later. But, we had a similar moment where she just looked at me and told me what she thought of me and how great I was. And I had no idea at the time.
Yeah.
I really wasn't sure that I had anything to offer. And on the days when I wanted to give up or when I was tempted to, not believe in myself, I would just play that tape again. And it's why I'm here today, Yeah. So that is a fabulous, fabulous leadership lesson. That's so awesome. So, it kind of brings me to this whole world of what's going on here in Salt Lake City and the Silicon Slopes. How would you describe that? And do you think that there's something special going on here? It kind of seems to me like there is.
Yeah. So in 2013, 2012, maybe, when I started Unbill with my co-founder, Scott, we actually left Salt Lake because, some people that were here were like, hey, no, like you'll have a better chance starting this company in other places like Austin or San Francisco or New York or some of these other places.
Hubs, right?
Yeah. And so I remember my co-founder and I, we moved to Austin, we started a company there, sold it there. But in the meantime, Salt Lake continued to rip. And, like at first I think it was slow. And then all of a sudden it was like, what the heck just happened? I think is how a lot of this happened here. And so I moved out to California after selling after selling Unbill. And then when I was contemplating starting this company, I moved to Utah to start this company. I mean, there's, that's what happened. My wife and I were talking about it. My co-founder and I were talking about it. I was like, look, it's a great group of people there. We'll be able to find great talent. And it was at the time before COVID, not similarly priced to the Bay Area, although it's changed significantly.
Boy, oh boy.
But also from a lifestyle standpoint, I like to fly fish. I like to ski. I wanted to spend, my kids are getting older. I have a 9-year-old, 7-year-old and a 5-year-old today actually is her birthday. And then also, and then a 2-year-old. And I was just like, we want to be able to spend time in the mountains. We want to spend time doing those sorts of things that we find fun. And Salt Lake's amazing for that.
Yeah, boy, is it. And it does seem to me like there is just a really talented, smart workforce that understands a good work ethic and things like that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, I think that's due to the wonderful companies that have paved the way. I mean, you're going back all the way to Novell days and to a certain extent, right?
That's right.
But each one of these companies has had a massive impact. WordPerfect, there's building off of each one of these phases of development of companies that we can thank them. I say this at a long, especially of the Plaids and Finicities and MXs of the world. And those groups, like we stand on their shoulders, certainly, because of the path they paved for us. But it's the same way. The reason we have great talent to choose from now here in Utah is because of all these great companies that have gone before us and pulled in great talent from out of state, helped them see the beauty of Utah, but also the opportunities here. And so many of those people have wanted to stay.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, it's pretty exciting. I mean, it's really amazing. Boy, it's been a long time since I heard some of those names, though. WordPerfect and Novell, and I got on the internet in 1987 at UCLA at the first ever Macintosh computer lab that was connected to the internet anywhere in the world.
Wow,
and
that's cool.
I remember I helped install all the cables to get people on the internet and for the humanities department. So I was crawling through the ceilings in Royce Hall and stuff. And we were installing Sun Microsystems computers. We were installing Cisco routers. It was an amazing time. I wish I would have understood stock and bought a little bit back then, because I knew exactly what was going on, but I didn't take advantage of it. But I think that's a really great acknowledgement, and I think you're totally right. There's just these fabulous Utah companies that I think a lot of people don't realize came from this area that paved the way. That's great. So you told us a moment that was difficult, that moment when you guys had to, bridge with your own money. Is there another time when you were ready to give up or just really, really down and someone made a difference or a quote or something that you read or whatever?
Yeah. So I mentioned like different people in different phases of life. Yeah. And, for me, this last November, I was raising our Series B at the time, and people that have never fundraised before, it's hard to describe it to people, because it's like you go into a hole for 4 months, 5 months, however long it takes. And then you come out and you hope your business is still running. Like you're trying to run it at the same time, but it's so hard.
It's really,
and the part that I think some founders don't deal with because they don't have this, but many founders deal with, is there's also a family there that is like, are things still go, is my family still together 5 months later? Yeah. And in November, my wife pulled me aside, and I'd been working like crazy to get this deal done. And she said, I miss you. And it was those comments for me that helped me realize what's most important in life. Yeah. And I called all of my investors the next day, and I told them I needed to make some changes before we wrapped up our Series B to make sure my family was getting the priority time. I think a lot of what we talk about is work necessarily. That's kind of the purpose of these sorts of podcasts. But we have this phrase internally that we use at Atomic, is I wouldn't have started Atomic, and neither would have my co-founder, if there was a place out there where we could do the best work of our lives. And we felt like we might be able to create a place where we could do the best work of our lives and where other people could too. Yeah. And for me, that includes having a happy family. And that's how I do the best work of my life, is being able to make sure that I can give to the most important thing in life, which is my children and my wife. Yeah. And, sometimes we need those reminders. Hopefully it's going towards your question, but that was a moment where I didn't know I was down. And then I realized the most important part of my life was suffering. And that question of, or comment of, I miss you, was what I needed to get me back on track.
That's fabulous. And so there's two things that brings up for me. One is, I just want to acknowledge that even in our short conversation so far, you have what I think is one of the most important leadership skills that anybody could develop, which is you are constantly setting and reminding the empowering context around what you're doing, your mission, the important things in life. Like, I just want to acknowledge you.
Thank you.
Because that's just clearly part of how you think and speak. And I just think that, people say content is king. Well, if content's king, context is emperor. And I think that I just like to point out to everybody listening how often just naturally you're bringing up the context, the empowering context for who you are and what you do and what's important to you. That's super inspiring. And especially to the people that are a part of that context with you there inside Atomic Financial,
Thank you, John.
I think that's really great. And the other thing is, I want to ask you, because I just think I want to ask you a pointed question about when you went back to your investors and you said, I got to make a few changes because my family's suffering and I don't want that. What was your experience of that? Like, how did they react to that?
All positive, very positive. And I think that's a place, maybe 10 years ago, the VC community wasn't like that. Yeah. But, one of my investors said, okay, I'll check in with you in 1 month. I want to hear what your goals are. Because, we're running a marathon and starting this company. It's not like, like we can come in and just sprint all day long every day. This is a 10+ year journey. We're 3 years into it, and making sure that nothing suffers along the way, I don't think there's true balance in life. You go through ebbs and flows of everything, of everything in your life. I don't think you have perfect balance, but making sure that you don't miss out on those most important things. And remembering, and that was a comment one of our investors said, hey, it's a marathon. Tell me what your goals are, and I'll try to be an accountability partner with you to make sure that you're sticking to them. And at the time, I had like a knee injury that had been nagging me since I started the company. I hadn't seen a doctor about it. It'd been 2.5 years. And I was just kind of like,
right. 2.5 years.
Yeah.
Right.
And then he was like, that better be looked at in the next 2 months, or, we're going to have words. And it was great to have that kind of support. And so anyway, hopefully that answers your question, John. But
well, sure it does. Yeah. And it, because I had my heyday in raising money and running companies back in internet kind of 1.0, starting in 1994, was with several different companies. And I think altogether, I was part of teams that raised several $100 million. My last one was this company called bigwords.com. And I was one of the co-founders. There were 4 of us, and we raised over $80 million. And then in the .com crash, our investors said, look, you guys have done a good job at what you're doing, but we don't think you can be profitable fast enough. And the market has really dramatically changed. So we're pulling the plug. And I had been working 24/7. I remember going home and crying myself to sleep at midnight, and then being back in the office by 6 a.m. to welcome, everybody that was coming back into the office. And that was just kind of how it was expected that you did it, Yeah. And I almost died of an autoimmune disease because of the lack of sleep and the stress. I mean, it was nasty, and it took me several years to recover from that. So I got my, thank heavens it didn't kill me, right? Like, I think the universe keeps giving you wake up calls harder and harder. And thankfully I got that wake up call before before the next one was going to completely whack me. But I think that was one of the things that I think now it's much clearer, and it is a marathon. It is not a sprint. And I think that VCs who expect the full sprint all the time, like, that company is going to burn out. That company is probably not going to have as great a chance of success as a company where the VCs support you in that. And I think it's an overall over time kind of balance, right? I totally agree with you. Sometimes it's just pegged to one side. Sometimes it's pegged to the other side, but overall there has to be some sort of an ongoing balance. So I think that's really good to hear, I think that's something that's really important for entrepreneurs to listen to. I also think it's really important for a lot of the listeners that are in big corporations to listen to, because I think that there is, I'd love to get your opinion, Joe. I'm going to say something. Sure. I'd love to get your opinion. Yeah. But it seems to me like a lot of the great resignation and a lot of the discontent in corporations right now is because people are just, I think that younger people are just less and less willing to work those 80-hour work weeks. And I think the people that are in charge right now are like, well, I did it. Why can't you do it? And there's some truth to that. I get that if you want to move up inside the corporation, you got to demonstrate that you're hungry for it and things. But I just think that the needle has moved more towards some sort of balance. And I think that's having a profound impact on corporate cultures right now, and kind of surprising and shocking people some.
Yeah. I agree with this 100%. In fact, I had 2 examples of this in the last couple of years for me. After selling our company, I was just kind of looking for a place. Is there a place without being a founder where I can do the best work of my life? Yeah. And I remember I was a few months into one role and talking and working with a group, and my childhood best friend was diagnosed with brain cancer. Oh. And I just said, look, I'm going to work remotely, but I'm just going to go to his house and I'm going to drive him to his chemo in the morning. And I'm going to try to clean up around the house in the afternoons, but I'm going to still work hard. But I just want to do this for a week because he's going to be gone in 3 months, and as well all my memories with him. Right. And I remember the CEO of this company at the time said to me, I don't know how I feel about that. And I was just like, oh, then I'm leaving. You know, like,
I quit. Yeah.
Yeah. So, and it was like, whoa. I was like, no, there's no, like, anybody that doesn't know how they feel about that doesn't have a heart. And I'm not working with that person. Right. And a similar example, a good friend of mine, her mom was diagnosed with cancer. And this is during COVID. And she says, I'm going to go out to the East Coast where I don't normally work just so I can spend time with her in case these are our last days together. Right. And after a month of that, her employer called her up and like, we want you, we're going to be coming back into the office. We want you back in the office. And she said, well, then it's time for me to find another role. Because I mean, like, in a world where we can be remote most of the time and my mom has cancer and I can't spend the last few months with her, that's not a place I want to be long term. And so I think that, it does go back to this idea of how can I do the best work of my life, no matter the circumstances in my life. And that when we create a culture at these companies where people feel like they can do the best work of their life, but at the same time, where workplaces are flexible with those sorts of things. Yeah, man, not being flexible in a moment like that, that gets around fast. And who wants to be a part of a culture like that?
Yeah, no, I think that's fabulous. I'm all for that. Like I think that human thriving is key to just everything, including a successful company.
I've never worked a 40-hour work week in my life. I never remember putting in only 40 hours of my life, except maybe when I was on vacation. So it's not like then I'm maybe only working 20 or 30, right?
Yeah.
But I think it's important to unplug, and I'm trying to do better at that too on vacations. But like the fact of the matter is, we're talking about, like, you're talking to somebody that's going to work 60 to 70 hours a week, and you're saying to that person, I'm like, the way that you're doing it is not okay with me. That's like not rewarding the loyalty or the good work ethic that people are putting in. That's pretty frustrating.
Yeah, super. Well, you remind me of the fact that I strongly believe that culture eats strategy for lunch every single day of the week.
Yes.
And I wonder what you think of this. I believe I've started because, my focus is leadership communications. And I think stories and storytelling are incredibly important. And I think, especially in a lot of larger organizations, that gets shoved onto a back burner because, people got poker face and they don't, like there's this weird stuff going on. But I think that I've started to think about leadership stories. I call them your leadership stories. Those are like the mythology that stitches together the culture of a company, and culture eats strategy for lunch every single day of the week. So would you agree with that? And if you do, what are some of the stories that you tell internally there that are important to that kind of a culture that it seems like you're creating?
Yeah. So I 100% agree with you. And I think that some of the stories, so first off, we have 6 cultural pillars. We added one recently. We have 6 cultural pillars that at Atomic, and we try to reinforce those every company meeting that we have. We're recognizing people that are living each one of those cultural values. Yeah. And one of them is giving back. But also in the interview process, we have people that have veto right on culture only, right? And so I interviewed someone who had sailed through every other interview process to be a product manager for us, and it crushed everything. By all counts, was an amazing person to come and be a product manager for us. But I asked the person, can you tell me a way that you've given back to your community in the last 6 months? Mm-hmm. The person said, well, I've been planning a wedding for the last year and I just haven't had very much time. And I said something like, well, people that care about giving back always find time for it. And this person said to me, like, wow, And I just said, I just want you to know, like, that's the only reason you wouldn't get this job. I've heard incredible things about you everywhere else. But that's the only reason that we would hold back on our side, because we want people here that are signed up to do broader good. Like, we've been hockey sticking for 2.5 years now. There will be times when we aren't hockey sticking as a company. We want people here that care about helping the most financially vulnerable people in society. We give 5 days of vacation time. That's not vacation time per year. We get 5 days off to be able to go dedicate to the cause of your choice. And I, as a leader, take point on making sure that I do that. And I tell everyone on my senior leadership team, you have to do this. You have to give these 5 days per year to a cause of your choice, because we set the tone across the organization, the kind of people we want to be. And in my opinion, when people come back into work after donating their time, and for some of them, it's the first time they've ever done anything like this in their lives. And we have people walking away from a situation. We had Afghan refugees here in our offices. We helped them with resumes. We had translators in between us. We all built resumes with these people, helping them to kind of distill their experiences in Afghanistan and put those into what they could do here.
Yep.
We had a clinic here for them, all that kind of stuff. I had people coming to my office crying. Like, I've never had an experience like this before. Thank you for giving this to me. Right.
Oh, that's so great.
Yeah. And it's just like, look, this is now. And then you just say, when you go back to your desk and when you change Wendy's so that we can authenticate with Wendy's better than we have in the past, you're going to impact 1,000 people tomorrow and 20,000 people this year. But with your ability to be able to authenticate with that system so they can get better access to a loan than they would normally get access to, right? Like, these are the people we're serving. And when we tie that to the, like, people John, we have never lost an employee. We have 109 people in our company.
Yes. Yeah.
The only people that have left, we've kind of tried to be nice about it, and we've invited them to find their way out the door because it wasn't working out. But we've had nobody quit on us in all of this time period. And that is an amazing thing to me. And I think there's a power to these mission-driven companies that are like, look, there's a reason for our existence on Earth, and it's not just to make money. It's to make the world a better place, and you can be part of that.
I mean, listen, I want to come work with you guys. Like, I'm so lit up, and I also, a little bird told me that you guys took your bonuses and put that into housing Afghan immigrants a while back.
We did. So a lot of people would have, after a large fundraise, we were anticipating it wasn't technically our bonuses, but it was like what we would have done for Christmas. So it was our Christmas gifts. It would be typical for a company that raised a large amount of money to do some lavish Christmas gifts at the end of the year, company holiday thing. And everybody put it on a gift card, and we went and bought things for the local Afghan community for our activity at the end of last year for our company party, as you will. And that, I think that just people want to do that kind of stuff.
Yeah. I mean,
who needs another Apple Watch? So
right. Right. I'm thinking that in a way that's truly lavish and luxury is to go lavish that on someone who truly needs it, because you can do that. Right. How magical is that when you stand in that and really get it,
But all of that, John, that came from, there was a Christmas when I was 8 years old that my parents picked a family nearby living in a mobile home park that we literally took presents out from under our tree and gave them to them. And I remember, and that was what came to my memory as we were thinking about these Afghan people coming to Utah. Yeah. And it was the memory of that. So, I mean, to your point about leadership, I don't know all of your thoughts on leadership, but we oftentimes mirror what we've seen in our lives. We need these role models that help us see these things. And my parents have certainly been those role models for me over my life, as well as many other leaders. But we model that. And it came to mind, right, as I was sitting there looking at our plans for the end of year party. And here at the same time, we had hundreds of refugees coming to Utah from Afghanistan. Yeah.
Gosh, that's so fabulous. And one of the things that I do talk a lot about, Jordan, is mirror neurons. We have mirror neurons. Someone just won a Nobel Prize a few years ago for their work with this, but we feel what we see other people going through, and we mirror what the people around us are doing, which is why, and just on the podcast just a little bit ago, I had a woman named Fiona Murden, who's an expert in all of this. She wrote a book called Mirror Thinking, just fabulous woman and brilliant. And, you know, the best estimates now are that like 90% or more of all of our cognition is unconscious. So we have this teeny little bit of our conscious cognition that we can actually have agency over. And one of the most important things to do with that is to consciously pick who you're hanging out with, because you are going to unconsciously mirror them, no questions asked, you know? So that's fabulous. And I'm, you know, call your mom today and tell her thanks.
I tell her thank you a lot. I will again.
I bet you do.
But I tell her thank you a lot.
That's great. That's great. Well, you know, and so I notice we're getting kind of close on time here. Let me ask you if there's anything that came up for you that you maybe want to say, or is there anything I didn't ask you that I should, or some great story that you think this might be great to share, any of that stuff?
I would say just one thing, you know, we've talked a lot about the social impact of some of this stuff. I just want to make it clear, like, we're not doing that all day, every day. We have opportunities to do it every once in a while. But meanwhile, what I think it creates is a culture of people that are working so hard to help enable these things for the people that are most vulnerable in our society. And so what it's allowed us to do is, you know, we have some of the largest fintechs as our clients. We have Chime, we have SoFi, we have Robinhood, we have all these Dave, Earn, you know, all these Coinbase, all these companies that everybody's heard of. I mean, it's enabling us to serve them in an incredible way because of our mission and because of the sorts of people that mission attracts. It helps us create an incredibly valuable business. And so I hope that, I think in the last 10 years, we've seen an incredible rise of companies that want to do good at the same time as making money. I think it builds longer lasting companies. I think it builds better relationships with employees in the company. It does so many positive things for the ecosystem. No place should be better situated than Utah to do things like that. I mean, Cotopaxi is one I've looked to. MX is one I've looked to. These are great companies doing incredible things on top of their businesses. And every company has the opportunity to do something like this. I truly believe it's finding the right niche for them and bringing it to. So that's one thing that I believe deeply in. It's about generating profits, it's about creating great business, which we're doing. But it's giving employees the opportunity to do some of this other special stuff.
I love that. I mean, you know, and listen, I think making money is really important. As my buddy, the gangster gardener, says, the funny thing about sustainability is you have to sustain it. And I think that, you know, you're making me juxtapose these two things in what's kind of a new way for me, but you do have to sustain sustainability, and we want to be profitable. We want to make lots of money. That's great. And if you've got to focus on a mission and you're serving people who really need it in a way that really makes a difference, then that's going to really amplify your sustainability, because there's a deep meaning to what you're doing. And then you also get to pick the ripe fruit that's, you know, from these other places, but that whole business is more sustainable because of the meaning and focus that you have.
I agree 100%.
I love it. I love it. All right. Well, so anything else to say? Oh gosh, you know what? Let me just say, but you know, I'll put ways to find you on LinkedIn and stuff in the show notes. I guess, you know, if you want to find Jordan, you can find him at linkedin.com/in/Wright Jordan. That's WRIGHT Jordan. And then on Twitter, twitter.com/Wright WRIGHT_Jordan. And, you know, I think that, you know, probably you're going to want to go see what Jordan has to say on LinkedIn, because I think this has only been the beginning and just a taste of some really great, really valuable stuff that you shared with us, Jordan.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Anything else you want to say before we go?
I'll just say, like, some of the products that we're working on right now are an earned wage access product. Like, these are all products deliberately chosen, not just because of their TAM. TAM was important for us, but also because of their impact. And we measured those. Like last June in our board meeting, we brought 3 or 4 product ideas to the table. And it was, first, which one of these can have the biggest impact? And secondarily, what's the TAM on bringing these to market? And our earned wage access product, giving people the ability to be able to get access to money that they've already gained from their paycheck mid-pay cycle, right? Or they've already accrued mid-pay cycle. Like, those are the sorts of things that our mission could go and unlock for people around the United States now, and hopefully around the world in the long run, that we're really excited about. And so, if you're looking for a company that's mission driven, you want to impact millions of people. We had 17.8 million people see Atomic last year. If you want to join something that has high impact, that you're going to be able to talk to your families and friends in the next 5 years and say, oh, you used Atomic today. This is a company that you can come join, that you want to, if you want to participate in this. And if you're looking for solutions to help, if you're a FinTech company, if you're a traditional financial institution looking for solutions to help with these sorts of things, we'd love to speak with you.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Well, that's great. And listen, I look forward to staying in touch and hearing more. And, anything exciting happens, please let me know. I guess exciting things happen every day, but you know what I mean.
Will do. Thank you, John.
Jordan, thank you very much for joining us. And to you listening, thank you very much for joining us. I just want to reiterate something that I learned and really, really hit me just a few years ago. You've probably heard the story here on the show about how I almost died, and I promised the universe that if it let me live, all I would care about, at the top of what I would care about, would be making a difference. And I'm proud of myself because I've kept that promise, and it has made my life rich and exquisite since that happened. And what I realized a little while ago is that the only way I get to make a difference is through the generosity of your listening. So thank you for listening. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for sharing this. And Jordan, thank you again for all this great stuff and this wonderful energy and insight and context that you've shared with us. It's really been a pleasure.
Thank you, John. It's been a pleasure for me as well. Appreciate the opportunity to come on with you.
Thank you for joining the Speak Like a Leader podcast. Go be awesome.